All right. Welcome to Sideboard MTG. My name's Eric, and it's coffee time. We've got three great decks for you guys tonight. The first one is actually a deck that has been played by a couple other streamers that was submitted by one of the viewers, and we're going to be talking about it. I believe Madness actually submitted this deck. Actually thought that there might be something worth looking at here, so we're going to give it a little more of an in-depth look. And then tonight I'm going to pick one of the three decks that we talk about or work on, and then we're gonna try to get some gameplay in with the finished product of that deck. So I hope you guys like it. If you do, don't forget to hit that like button, that subscribe button. If you want to help support the channel, you can join here on YouTube or help out over on patreon.com. But other than that, let's get started. We've got our first deck here. Again, this is a Legend VD deck. The deck's pretty sweet. I'm excited to kind of to talk about it a little bit here. I'm going to go ahead and open up Discord. If you guys want to join us over on the Discord, you can. You'll just need to jump down into the Coffee Time channel. If we end up with too many people in Coffee Time channel, I will have to like back off a little bit. But if you have a deck, or if one of the decks we're talking about tonight is one that you submitted, then you'll definitely get priority. But anyway, let's see what Madness and Tier 1 Jank have to say about our what is Blood Lotus, right? Blood Sun and Lotus Field. That might actually be a sweet combo. Let's see what they have to say about it. What's up? What's up? Oh my goodness! I just realized I don't have chat. Oh my goodness! Chat's gonna be all over me. Like we're let me get chat pulled up here so I can see what everyone else is saying. And Madness, since you posted this deck, meanwhile, will you tell us like what made you interested in this deck in the first place? Oh goodness, we're gonna have
Well,
a.
for one,
Go ahead.
one thing that made me interested in the deck, aside from the very edgy name, which I very much appreciate from Legend VD, is the fact that we're playing Blood Sun's main deck and we're actually trying to make Lotus Field work, which ever since I first saw Lotus Field when it got revealed, everybody was of course hyping it up. It's Lotus. It's got Lotus in the title. That's all you need. Card's gonna sell. Add 3 mana of any one color. That's very much interesting, especially on a single land. If you can get it to work, then that's a lot of ramp. Of course, it does have the drawback of you need to sacrifice 2 lands, but that's the whole point of Blood Sun, is to shut that down, to keep it from needing to sacrifice 2 other lands so that we can still get extra ramp from it. But at the same time, it's not exactly a big downside if we can't get Blood Sun to shut down Lotus Field's ability to require sacrificing lands, because we do have Elvish Reclaimer in the deck, which works off lands being in our graveyard in the first place.
Okay. So let me read Blood Sun for everyone that's not used to Blood Sun here. Blood Sun is a 3 mana enchantment, 2 and 1 red. For Blood Sun enters the battlefield, you get to draw a card. Well, I'm like halfway sold already. I love drawing cards. The other ability on this enchantment is all lands lose all abilities except mana abilities. And that combos with Lotus Field here that says it's a land, it's hexproof, it enters the battlefield tapped, it enters the battlefield, you sacrifice 2 lands, and then the mana ability on it is add 3 mana of any one color. So if this were to lose all non-mana abilities, it would no longer be hexproof, it would no longer enter the battlefield tapped, and you would no longer have to sacrifice 2 lands. You just play a land that makes 3 mana of any one color. Okay, that's that doesn't sound horrible at all. Like if you were going to make anything lose its abilities, this is the land to do it. I kind of like that. Also, like cards like Rootbound Crag will just enter the battlefield no matter what you have. Stomping Ground will just enter the battlefield, and it's a mountain forest that creates, like, you just don't have to pay life for it. Rootbound Crag will no longer enter the battlefield tapped unless you control a forest or a mountain. Like it'll just enter, and then everything else is just a basic. So pretty straightforward on the mana base. So you're actually getting a little bit of hate out of Blood Sun, with Blood Sun hating on the opposing decks that are running like Field of the Dead. Field of Ruin will also no longer have the ability to pop your lands, things like that. So this will not only hose any important lands on the opponent's side, but you're getting some serious benefit out of it with the Lotus there. So Rocker says this is one of his personal favorites because of the synergy and works really well together. Barry Drake says it's a nice. That's nice. So I think he likes the combo. As far as like the rest of the deck goes, everything just looks kind of straightforward. I mean, we're wanting to ramp with Land of Worlds. We've got Elvish Reclaimer, which, you know, if we do end up putting lands in the graveyard, we're going to turn this on. You only need to have 3 or more land cards in your graveyard to activate Elvish Reclaimer, or to get the ceiling on Elvish Reclaimer. You can always sacrifice some lands. Sacrifice any land to go get any land out of your battlefield or out of your graveyard, or I can't talk, out of your library. So Elvish Reclaimer, not a bad one drop here. And the one thing I like about it the most here is the fact that it's a 1/2, right? Like even before you activate it, it's a 1/2. So no dying to Goblin Chain Whirler, that sort of thing. Gives you blockers against those bloody red decks. I think that's pretty much what everybody's calling them now, right? Flip land gets shut down too. You're right, Cornball. Mainly search for Escanta. Like they're not getting any value out of that search for Escanta. Um, so you know we've got the Llanowar Elves as a little bit of early ramp. The deck's also running Kiora, Behemoth Beckoner, which whenever a creature with power 4 or greater enters the battlefield under our control, we get to draw a card. We do have some creatures that will be that large. We have Rekindling Phoenix. We have Cavalier of Flame, which Cavalier of Flame will work either with Blood Sun out or without Blood Sun. If we maybe are trading some lands out with our Elvish Reclaimer, or perhaps we've got Cavalier of Flame, just using it to, you know, discard cards from our hand, and then drawing cards. We can put lands in our graveyard that way. So Cavalier of Flames actually got more merit here than I have seen it in a lot of other decks. And I like the card. I just like to see all aspects of the card work. So the other big one that I'm not mentioning here is Voracious Hydra. Voracious Hydra has been just broken in my testing, in my testing. Voracious Hydra has been just absolutely wonderful, and like Deb said in his video, I'm actually just making it fight most of the time, especially in a ramp deck. The one question I do have is, where's Nissa?
So there's no Nisses in the deck because if you actually check the mana base, there's not a whole lot of forest compared to other lands to try to take advantage of that. There's only about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 forests, not counting Stomping Ground. So there's actually 12. So I guess half the land base does kind of support it, but at the same time, because the lands like Lotus Field and Rootbound Crag and Stomping Grounds, mainly Lotus Field in this case, is losing its hexproof here. We don't really want Nissa to be animating those because then our Lotus Field will die to like creature removal, and we don't want our regular lands to be dying to creature removal either. We kind of need those to ramp with Voracious Hydra and try to get like a big 10-11 Voracious Hydra on turn whatever. Plus, I think it just kind of messes with the consistency of the deck. I don't think it's necessary. Cavalier Flame is our prime 5-drop here, and it works with all parts of the deck. It lets us discard cards to draw more gas, and when it dies, it deals with that damage based on whatever lands we have in our graveyard. So I just don't think Nissa is necessary. She could probably be put in here as maybe a split between it and Cavalier Flames at some ratio, but uh, this isn't like the kind
I
of Nissa deck I would put her in.
I agree, and Blood Sun would also make your Nissa lands lose vigilance, which is actually more relevant than a lot of people give it credit for.
Right, because there are some very, very rare fringe players who are still playing Seal Away, so that can also hurt you. Plus, you don't have them on defense on the next turn, uh, etc.
Understood.
Wouldn't Blood Sun also make them lose the ability to produce 2 green mana?
No,
No,
because that
because that's
ability is
Nissa's ability.
directly on Nissa.
Yeah, that's Nissa's ability. They don't have the ability to produce the extra mana. Plus, if they did, it would be a mana ability. And Blood Sun says anything other than mana abilities. We've also got Bond of Flourishing in here for the draw. I've really enjoyed this card when I was playing the Boros deck, or sorry, the not the Boros, the Bolus's Citadel deck. It's the only other time that I've played Bond of Flourishing, and I actually really like Bond of Flourishing. Did I say Blonde of Flourishing? The Flourishing Blondes. Ah, great, wonderful. Also, I have put not suitable for work on this stream because I have no clue what could possibly happen in Discord. For those of you wondering, actually, I like every card in this deck except for Kiora. I'm on the fence about Kiora. I get that she's a little extra mana, but I'm a little bit torn on 4 copies of Kiora.
Well, it's actually kind of funny you mentioned that because I was a little torn on it at first too, but turns out the extra mana that Kiora can give you is extremely relevant. Getting a Voracious Hydra that's like you can pay just 7 mana for that X on like turn 4 or turn 5 is really relevant. Plus, there's the fact that if you are spending all that mana on the Voracious Hydra, since it enters with the counters already on it, it's still going to trigger Cura's ability. And I think without something like Cure, the deck would kind of fall apart. She's like a secret linchpin here. She's card advantage that is desperately needed in this deck because it just runs out of gas really quick if you can't uh, get your combo together. It can win without the combo, but it kind of runs out of gas a little quick, especially against those more mid-range controlling decks. And also, the extra mana is important because it can not only fuel Voracious Hydra, but it can fuel Cavalier Flame's fire-breathing ability.
I definitely understand that using Kiora to untap a Lotus and then tap it for 3 more mana, making six mana out of 1 Lotus on a single turn seems pretty broken. Pretty broken. Yeah, Rocker just said something along the same lines. QR tends to help untap the field of Lotus to help for the bigger Hydras. Yeah, that makes sense. And like the Cavaliers seem like they fit in really well here. I'm actually a little curious why the Green Cavalier is not in the deck. I mean, the Green Cavalier would potentially search up another Blood Sun, and whatever you didn't get with a Green Cavalier goes to the graveyard, so that would potentially help other Cavalier of Flames. So just a little curious why we don't have a copy or so of that in the deck, but I do get that the deck is like streamlined, like there's 4 of everything, and I don't 100% think that's probably the way to go. I think like maybe diversifying the threats a little bit would help, but the only thing I'm really seeing that I would want in the deck would possibly be the Green Cavalier. So
Right,
Um,
and to support that, I would probably maybe, if I were to change the deck any, I would maybe take out one Cavalier Flame for a Cavalier Thorns, or maybe have it be a 2-2 split. I think that could work really well. But I think the reason Cavalier Thorns wasn't considered for the deck probably is because we have Elvish Reclaimer to get our other lands if we need them, like Lotus Field, and then we also have Bond of Flourishing, which can go dig for more uh, lands that Thorn that, and of course not just the lands, but like our other creatures, our Blood Suns, it's our Kioras, etc. That Cavalier Thorns can't get, which we don't want to accidentally put a Kiora in the graveyard, because then that's our card advantage engine and our ramp engine kind of gone, and we don't want to get rid of our Blood Suns because, well, that's kind of like the centerfold piece of the deck.
Understood, understood, and those are all like really great points. Um, that I agree with what Rocker said that Cavalier, the Green Cavalier or Cavalier of Thorns might actually be a good sideboard option. It does have reach, which could be relevant versus some of these matchups, and I really do like the synergy with Elvish Reclaimer and Lotus Field here. So the deck's actually really sweet. Is there anything like that you would change about it? Anything that you didn't like when you were looking at it, Madness?
No, it could possibly just because the all four ofs in the entire deck is aesthetically pleasing to me, but there's not a whole lot that I would really change. Maybe swap out a Cavalier Flame or two for something else. Of course, that's like depending on your own prerogative and how you would build the deck yourself. So that's all subjective. There is the sideboard that I would like to talk about, which actually, if you take a look, this list lacks a sideboard. There is another YouTuber by the name of Thyrix Sticks, I believe is the name. I might be pronouncing that wrong. God help me otherwise. He actually created a sideboard for the deck, and so his thoughts were, if this were to be played for best of three, 4 Veil of Summer, 4 Fry, 2 Chandra Awakened Inferno, 3 Shifting Ceratops. Trying to remember what else he had.
It seemed like it'd be really easy to cast that Chandra, um, with the blood sun Lotus Field combo. So once like the earliest you can get this off is you need to be able to what turn to a blood sun, and then turn three start playing your Lotus Fields. Is that's how that would work? Yeah, that
Yeah, but I've also seen plays where, like, if you start with an Elvish Reclaimer, you can kind of take it a little bit slower because, as you mentioned earlier, Reclaimer does start with that extra bit of toughness on it, so it can kind of block relatively well in the very early game. And then once it gets bigger, once you get to 3 lands, you can pop you can pop a land with the Elvish Reclaimer, grab a Lotus Field, sacrifice your other 2 lands, and then all of a sudden you have a 3/4 Elvish Reclaimer, and you can do that at instant speed. So you can absolutely do that on your opponent's turn to get a surprise blocker if they're not paying attention or they don't know what the card does. And more often than not, they probably won't, because it's a brand new card and it's not seeing any play in any other decks otherwise.
all right. So if this deck was going to live the dream, what kind of hand are we looking at here? We're looking at like turn one Land of War Elves, turn two Blood Sun, turn three play your Lotus Field, use your Land of War Elves and two of the mana, not the Lotus Field, to cast Kiora. Tap Lotus Field for 3 mana. Use Kiora to untap Lotus Field. Cast Cavalier. Turn 3. Cast Kiora and Cavalier on turn 3, drawing a card. Is
I
that
think that
is
would
that the living the
probably
dream?
be the best play, but at the same time, I think maybe you want to save Cavalier Flame for when you're kind of getting a little mana flooded. So I
Okay,
think
so
you
then a
actually,
Hydra instead of the Cavalier Flame in that scenario?
I would probably go with the Hydra, simply because you can drop it down turn 3 as a 4/5 and have it immediately eat something. There's not a whole lot that's going to survive for power in a fight, other than maybe Lyra Dawnbringer. Yeah, pretty much just Lyra Dawnbringer. That's the only thing relevant that would. Well, then again, turn 3, I don't think Lyra Dawnbringer would be out turn 3 unless somebody hit a minor miracle. So,
I mean,
yeah,
the
turn 3, there's not
best
going to be a whole lot.
the best I can see on turn three in that scenario would be them getting a Sephira Sky's Blade. What's her name? Something like that. I think that's possible. Turn one, play a one drop. Turn two, play two more one drops. Turn three, play a one drop. Play Sephira.
Fair enough, that's a good point, but we actually have been seeing the Azurius Flyers decks kind of die down a little. They haven't made as much of an impact as everybody probably thought they would. So I don't think we have to worry about that too much, but there will of course be that one guy who is playing Azurius Flyers, especially on Arena, which this deck was originally made on, that are going to be playing that Azurius Flyers deck that can get the turn 3 Safari.
Sepora. What rocker? Sepora. I call her Sephira. Sephara. Just like Sephiroth, like the female Sephiroth. That's what it is. The angelic Sephiroth, which in and of itself is almost an oxymoron.
I'm just gonna call her Stephanie at this point then.
All right. So Stephanie, we'll cast Stephanie and be done with it. I like the deck. I also love the four lava coils. I think lava coils in one of the best spots it can be in right now. It shuts down the feather decks. It does a lot of work. So definitely on my radar for one of the decks that we'll attempt to play later tonight. So anything else you got about this deck? I've actually got no other suggestions other than the few that I have made so far. The deck actually looks really good, and I would just like to see it in play. So
I'm still having a bit of a struggle remembering the full sideboard. I remember 4 Veil of Summer, 4 Fry, 3 Shifting Ceratops, 2 Chandra Awakened Inferno. I'm just having trouble remembering those last few slots. Obviously, you would probably need to play this best of 1 if you're not going to run the sideboard. Otherwise, I don't think there's any point in playing it best of 3. But those are the key highlight cards that I remember in the sideboard that Styx created for his updated version, which all he really did was add the sideboard to it.
I'm sorry, I'm just over here laughing at Rocker. He says madness. Stephanie comes in and gives all other flyers a latte. Yeah. So James Cluxton says he thinks the deck's a little too slow, that it's trying to do mid-range stuff, but also ramp without too many ramp payoffs. Really, he thinks that it really needs a little more card filtering with only the 24 lands. I think that's a lot to do with what Bond of Flourishing is meant for. And you've got Rekindling Phoenix, you've got Hydra. I mean, worst case scenario, you're playing Rekindling Phoenixes. That will buy you enough time to do what you're looking for. I don't necessarily think the deck is slow. I mean, one of the lines I just mentioned is the line that if you have the Llanowar Elf, you have the Blood Sun, you have the potential to technically turn 3 Chandra. Like turn 3 play Kiora and Chandra if Chandra is out of the sideboard. So I think it's trying to do mid-range things really early. So I don't know if I can 100% agree with the deck is slow. If you hit any of these things, it's not going to be slow at all. So Skylar says this deck needs Thud.
No.
Okay. Voracious Hydra does play well with Thud, so maybe I doubt it, but maybe it could be a thing, I guess. I just don't like sorcery speed Thud. I don't like sorcery speed fling. If I'm gonna play a fling type card, I want it to be fling. So no Skylar, bad Skylar.
Right, and to comment further on what Justin said, if you really think this deck is that slow, I
That was
definitely 100
James.
recommend. Or James, Justin, you're the same person. I'm just kidding. Anyway, if you really think the deck is that slow, James, go check out Legend VD's video on it. You'll find that even though it can be a little bit slow, it does have a lot more play than it looks like at first.
So Legend VD actually played this deck.
Yes, he played it on not on. I don't think it was on stream, but I think it was in one of his VODs.
Okay, so like he played it, recorded it, and posted the games.
Right. And Legend VD, he's a stand-up guy. He'll post when he loses and when he doesn't. Uh, he usually just like posts the best games he can find, like not the ones
Well,
that
why are you
suck.
defending that? It's almost like someone makes fun of people only posting winning games or something. Um, you don't have to answer that. All right, yeah, you checked out that video as well. So Rocker has already seen the Legend of BD video of this. Well, I'm actually just going to leave it at that. The deck looks pretty sweet. It is a lot of 4-ubs, and I'm normally hesitant on that, but that's also a really good place to start when you're trying to build a new deck. Streamline it, make it do the one thing really, really well, and then if you find out that the deck does that one thing extremely well, then you can start trimming back on some other cards and give it a little bit more flexibility. So this definitely looks like a deck in its early stages of testing. If any of you do decide to run it and you play it a little bit and you do some testing and start making some tweaks to it, I would definitely be happy to see other changes that were made to it, cards that you felt that weren't as necessary, or maybe some cards that you actually added to the deck that you felt were more necessary. So yeah, pretty sweet deck. Thank you for submitting it, Madness, and I think we're gonna move to this Abzan Tokens deck. Let's take a look here.
All right, thanks for having me.
Do you want to stick around and talk about this Abzan Tokens list with me? I don't think Decked is going to be able to be here for it. This is his deck.
Gotcha. Yeah, I could do that. I'm very interested in Abzan Tokens. I played Abzan Tokens before rotation happened last year. If you guys recall, I actually submitted an Abzan Tokens deck that worked pretty well. It was just a little bit slow, even in that format.
I can't pull up the cards here. Okay, so I got to know what this Iron Root Warlord is in this Abzan Tokens. Iron Root Warlord is a 3-mana star 5. Its power and toughness are equal to the number of creatures you control. Sorry, its power is equal to the number of creatures you control, and you can pay 5 mana to make a soldier, a 1/1 white soldier with no abilities. Just make a dude, which would potentially
I
increase its power.
I had somebody at pre-release for M20 compare this to Shauna Sisse's Legacy, and they asked me if I thought maybe this would be better than Shauna because it has creature creation. It's a little factory, self-contained, whereas Shauna doesn't quite do that. And I said, well, I don't think the reason Shauna doesn't see play right now isn't because it's not a self-contained factory that can fuel its own ability. The reason it doesn't see any play right now is because it's just not a very good ability at being at least a 1/1 is like okay, I guess, and it's protected from abilities your opponents control, but it's not seeing play in even the tokens decks, which is playing a ton of creatures. And having a factory on Shine, which is essentially what Iron Warlord is minus the pseudo hexproof, isn't going to save it very much because it's just not that good.
Right. Well, this deck does run Shauna Sisse's Legacy, which is the card he's talking about here. It's 1 green, 1 white for a 0/0, but gets +1/+1 for each creature you control. Does count itself, so it's always at least a 1/1. But the pseudo hexproof is lacking in my opinion. Um, can't be the target of spells or abilities your opponents control. Or sorry, can't be the target of abilities your opponents control. It can still be the target of spells, which it definitely the pseudo hexproof is lacking. But planeswalkers can't target it. They can't use Teferi to bounce it. So I mean, maybe it's more relevant than one would think. I mean, a 2-drop that can't be bounced by Teferi doesn't sound horrible right now, does it?
True, but at the same time, I think part of the reason Shauna doesn't see a whole lot of play is because we're kind of in a board wipe city state of mind with a lot of deck building, especially sideboards. The reason Shauna doesn't see a whole lot of play also could possibly be because she's legendary, and you want something that can have multiples of with that kind of ability on the field so that you can get more power on the board at one time, which Ironroot Warlord does have the ability to do. But it also costs extra, and it doesn't even protect itself in the slightest. The only upside other than that is it's always going to have at least 5 toughness, so it's not going to die to lava coil at any point, and it's a factory in and of itself if you happen to go into the late game.
Well, let's actually talk about that factory a little bit. So it is a late game mana sink, but look at the price on it, right? Like the Ironroot Warlord, we've kind of come to this like this generic or the vanilla baseline for certain abilities, and like we know that a +1/+1 counter typically cost about 4 mana to put onto a creature. Um, we also know that you can typically make a token for a 1/1 creature for about 4 mana. In this particular card, you're actually paying 5 mana for that. And I don't know how much I like the extra cost, even though it is a late game mana sink.
I'm not sure if it's your headset or mine, but
all right, is that better? Am I coming in a little bit clearer for you there?
let me try my headset. Okay, well, hopefully that solves the problem.
If that doesn't solve it, I'll have to change the Discord server. I don't like paying 5 mana for creating a 1/1. There's so many other ways that you can make a 1/1 creature without paying 5 mana. The typical price is 4 mana, so we are paying a little bit more for this. But Ironroot Warlord, if you can get wide in a go wide scenario, then it's probably actually going to be a really powerful card.
I think Ironroot Warlord's ability would be much better if we had more of a ramp sub-theme going on in this tokens deck, but that's already hard enough to pull off. Since tokens decks, they want to be extremely focused on that token synergy, and we already have enough payoffs with the tokens like Corpse Knight here, and Shauna and Ironroot Warlord's power ability to some extent, that we can't really fit too many pieces for ramp, because then that's just going to dilute our plan with going wide and trying to drain our opponent with Corpse Knight.
I don't. Where were we talking about going ramp? Does this deck have ramp that I'm missing?
No, I was just saying that Ironroot Warlord's mana sink, and I use that term loosely here, ability would be better if we had more ramp, which we cannot afford to put
Understood.
in deck.
So actually, chat's saying that they would probably lose Shauna Sisay's legacy. I'm going to get in trouble for that. Shauna Sisay's legacy for a possible Cruel Celebrants in the deck. So you've got Corpse Knight, which is a 2 mana card that says Whenever another creature enters the battlefield, let's see if I can zoom in just a little bit more here. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, each opponent loses 1 life, and then Cruel Celebrate would say that whenever a creature dies, they're going to lose a life. So you've got them taking damage on the way in and taking damage on the way out. Someone else just mentioned Dragon Lord here. Just mentioned Slimefoot. Slimefoot the Stowaway might actually be the better card over Ironroot Warlord, whereas Slimefoot the Stowaway does allow you to pay 4 mana to create that 1/1. And that 1/1 actually plays a little bit of double duty as it is a Sapperling. Go ahead.
You're right. I'm glad you actually brought that up first. I had seen. Sorry, I was trying to find the person who actually said the comment again. Yeah, Dragonlord. I had seen Dragonlord's comment before you, and I was gonna say something about it. I was just gonna wait for you to finish what you were saying, and I think Slimefoot absolutely would be a better option than Ironroot Warlord. Even though I can see why they wanted to put Ironroot Warlord in the deck because it just grows and grows with more creatures. But I think Slimefoot would be the better option because not only do you get 1 less to create basically the same exact power and toughness on the board, but you also get that synergy with that Sapperling token that if it dies, you drain the opponent and gain 1 life. And you also have Sapperling Migration, which plays into that a little bit more. So you have some sort kind of ability to use Slimefoot a little bit better than you would Ironroot Warlord.
Understood. We've also got like History of Benalia to help us go wide. There's not a lot of knights in the deck, but we do have Corpse Knight, which could benefit a little bit. Ironroot Warlord, there's no way that's a knight, right? No way.
I believe it's a Tree Folk Warrior.
All right, so Amara is not. She's an elf cleric. We know that Corpse Knight is, and then Ironroot Warlord. Yep, Treefolk Soldier. It's close. It's close. Not a knight though, just a soldier. Somebody give me a sword and tap this tree on the shoulders, please.
And then we got Shauna, who's a human warrior. She's not a knight. Venerate Loxodon, definitely not a knight. Raise the Alarm creates soldiers, not knights. And March of the Multitude also creates soldiers, not knights.
Right. So we don't have a lot of knight payoffs here with History of Benalia, but History of Benalia itself so good that I don't know if we need it. Skylar is all about the sigiled sword of Valoran. He's like, we just turn anything into a knight. It's okay. It's okay. I that does make tokens. Like the sigiled sword of Valoran does make tokens. Yes, we do have Corpse Knight. That's the only other knight in the deck. The deck does go wide. Legion's Landing, March of the Multitude, Raise the Alarm, that sort of thing, which means you get to play Conclave Tribunal and Venerated Loxodon, which are really good. Imara, we know that Imara is not bad at all. We've got Justin Clays over going, play the White God, play Oketra. Somebody please mention Oketra in this deck. Oketra might actually fit. I don't know though. It is a 5 mana creature that would be a lot harder to cast than say Venerated Loxodon, but it's possible. Oketra could definitely hit the it could fit the bill. Jank says it needs islands. Whatever. Knight of Autumn in the side. That's not bad either. Looks like we do have a couple copies of Knight of Autumn in the sideboard here. So.
Yeah, the sideboard actually looks pretty decent. Very split up. I like that. Whoever tried to build this deck, they were obviously going for fill the sideboard with as many things to hose as many decks that could be problematic, but I think the sideboard could use a little bit more tuning itself. Like I don't necessarily believe we need Devout Decree, or D-Spark maybe could be cut for some more Devout Decrees, or vice versa. I'm not entirely sure we need the Tecatli Honor Guards, because, if our deck's doing what it wants to be doing, then enter the battlefield effect shouldn't be too problematic, I can't imagine.
Well, I mean, if you're bringing in Tecatli Honor Guard, then your Corpse Knight's no longer that great. Um, that's pretty much the only card. So I guess you would have to take Corpse Knight out if you're bringing in Tecatli Honor Guard. Um, I mean,
Yeah,
it's not a
I
hundred
think
percent, but I think the big changes that I would want to try with this deck would be Ironroot Warlord for Slimefoot. I think Slimefoot's just more powerful there. And then as far as Shauna's Legacy or Shauna Sisay's Legacy, I'm still on the fence about that particular card. So Ironroot Warlord and Shauna Sisay's Legacy are the two that I would be looking at. What do you think about the two Raise the Alarm and the two March of the Multitude mains, like that split?
I think it's a very interesting decision. March of the Multitudes just seems like an obvious card to be in a token deck, but I would like to note that because Raise the Alarm and March of the Multitudes, as well as two of our other primary token generators in Sapling Migration and History of Benalia, since they're not creature spells, they're not going to trigger Oketra, her ability, because they're not creatures. So I don't know that Oketra is necessarily going to fit the bill for this particular build. Maybe if you take out the Loxodons, a couple Loxodons, but then you're getting even less creatures. So I definitely like Raise the Alarm, though. It's a classic token card, and I'm pretty glad it's back. I think it works for the build that it's in. Other than that, not really a whole lot I want to say.
Understood. Well, I would definitely trade out Shauna for a Cruel Celebrant. And I would probably run 4 Cruel Celebrants. So if we drop all 3 Shaunas and 1 Ironroot Warlord for four, or sorry, all 4 Cruel Celebrants, then that leaves us 2 spots that are open without Iron Root Warlord. We could just leave the Iron Root Warlords, or we could go the route with the Slimefoot the Stowaway. Dragon Lord here is mentioning, why no Tristani. Tristani might actually be really good, especially if the Yoink deck ends up coming back. You would definitely want some copies of Tristani somewhere in the 75 if the Simic Yoink comes back. But other than Simic Yoink, you're more worried about, yeah, there we go, Unbreakable Formation. You're more worried about a board wipe than you are having the anthem. So I like Tristani, but I mean, if you can't kill them with you know a board that's went wide with Venerated Loxodon getting a little bit bigger and that sort of thing, then one extra, I don't think this deck is like screaming for an anthem. I really don't. So I don't know if it really needs Tristani without the Yoink deck in the format. But yeah, the Tecatli Honor Guards in the sideboard, they do make Venerated Loxodon and Corpse Knight a little bit bad. But Unbreakable Formation is probably where you want to be. You probably want at least a couple copies of Unbreakable Formation in the sideboard. I mean, even you mentioned that we're in that board wipe city kind of meta state right now. So.
I'd also like to mention with Tristani, we're only running 22 lands in this particular build of the deck. So a 5 mana spell, I don't think, even as just a 2 of, is really where you want to be in 22 lands in a deck. I think you would have to add at least 1 or 2 more lands to be able to even support Tristani.
Understood. And again, I'm I'm still not really on Tristani. I know some people in chat are really really on to Tristani. Yes, in the sideboard, a couple copies of Tristani could probably fit. I I I don't think that you need the Devout Decree. So you're probably right. Devout Decree is probably one of the cards that you can cut back. D Spark's probably tied with Tocatli Honor Guard for taking it out. Tocatli Honor Guard, I think it says only when a creature entering the battlefield can't cause abilities to trigger. Is that how that works? Let's look that up. Let's make use of the Scryfall bot over here. Um, Tocatli. Alright, Tocatli Honor Guard enters the battlefield. Creatures entering the battlefield don't cause abilities to trigger. Okay, so Tocatli's not going to actually stop lands entering the battlefield causing abilities to trigger and that sort of thing. So, um,
Another thing I've noticed, by the way, is there's not a whole lot of black in the deck, and the main board alone, we're only running black for Corpse Knight. And then in the sideboard, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 of the slots having black mana. I think we could easily just, like, since we have Assassin's Trophy, we could probably replace D-Spark with something else, maybe some more Knights of Autumn, or just like, we don't need 8 slots of removal in the sideboard, I don't think.
well, we've also got Conclave Tribunal in the main board, which is just great. You're right, Skylar. Honor Guard is a necessary evil in a world of Risen Reef, so I'm not going to say that we take it out. I was just saying that it's kind of equal with D Spark, as in you may need it, you may not need it, and it really just depends on where the meta goes. If people are actually playing Risen Reef, then maybe we do want the Tocatli Honor Guards, and if people are not playing Risen Reef, then that makes D Spark a little bit better than Tocatli Honor Guard. Like, we haven't seen a lot of people playing the Wild Growth Walker J-Light Ranger package either, but that's still a real deck and it can still destroy you. So, yeah, I mean, I agree. I do think that we would add more black to the deck by changing Shauna to Cruel Celebrant, and then if we did end up with Slimefoot the Stowaway, we would have a little bit more black in the deck and would get a little bit more usage out of that mana. In the sideboard, though, I would definitely consider either more Knight of Autumn. Um, I would either consider Knight of Autumn Tristani, or I'm trying to think of the other card. I had it. I had it. I had it, ladies and gentlemen. I can't think of it now. So maybe I will. Anyway. Um, let's see here. What else do we have? Yeah, that's pretty much it. Either Slimefoot or Ironroot Warlord. I'm more on the Slimefoot idea. And Cruel Celebrant over Shauna, and I think that would be the changes I would attempt to make in this deck.
I mean, I could also see an argument for dropping one Amara, since, she is legendary. You don't want dead cards in your hand, especially in a deck like this. You could probably drop her for, like, an extra copy of Raise the Alarm. But at the same time, you do also have a lot of Convoke in the deck. You have the 4 Venerated Loxodons, 4 Tribunals, and 2 of the Marches, so maybe she's more necessary than I believe, but I don't think she's needed as a 4 of.
I'm going to agree with that as well. Most of the green-white decks that we've seen that did well in the season when they were doing well, everyone was only on 3 Amaras. I can agree with that. It does give us a few more open slots. The card I was trying to think of was Unbreakable Formation. I actually think this deck needs Unbreakable Formation pretty bad. I really do. I think the deck is going to go wide enough that your opponent is going to be on the sweep it or lose plan, and they're going to be trying to sweep the deck or sweep the board. Everything in this deck will die to Ritual of Soot. Everything except for Venerated Loxodon. So something to protect from a Ritual of Soot or a Kaya's Wrath or a Time Sweep is going to be huge. Yeah.
Also,
Um,
just an interesting thought I had just now. What would you think of Song of Freyalise in the deck, does it even have a place? One of, two of, three of, four of? Would it even be necessary?
I want to draw a card when I'm making that much mana. I find that with Song of Freyalise, I end up dumping my hand, um, and then I either have I either can't get enough creatures down to make usage out of the mana, or I don't have enough cards left in my hand to make usage out of the mana. Like it just either I can't get enough creatures down quick enough to actually make enough mana to do good things, or I can't actually like this deck only has two March of the Multitudes, and that might be right. Um, I've just had problems with Song of Freyalise in the past, and I never really broke the card, so I don't know if this deck has the means to play Song of Freyalise or not. Um,
Well, I mean,
it'd be worth testing, that's for sure.
there is one card in the deck that Song of Freyalise would be really good with, and that's Sapling Migration, just so you can get to that kicker cost quicker. Kicker quicker.
Get to the
Other
kicker
than
quicker.
that, though,
Gotcha.
yeah.
Yeah.
Other than that, though, I'm not entirely sure Song of Freyalise is needed for the deck either. I was just kind of spitballing an idea.
Understood. And that's kind of what coffee time's about. Just hey, what do you think here? So, Sir Eccles said Veraska could be good as early as a card advantage engine and early game removal. Actually, yeah, 4 mana Veraska could potentially even take the place of the Assassin's Trophies in the sideboard. I I really like 4 mana Veraska. I think she's in one of the best spots that she's been in since she's been printed, and she's been in some pretty good spots. Killing Narset, killing Teferi sounds great to me.
I could even see Vraska being in the main deck, taking the place of maybe a History of Benalia or two, just like because that card advantage is going to be so good, you're creating all these tokens. What do you care if you sacrifice one for a little bit of card advantage to keep yourself in the game? And even like if your board gets wiped, your Planeswalker's not going to get wiped, so you still have her on the field to take advantage of. You do probably want to be sacrificing your tokens more so than any other kind of permanent. But worst case scenario, sack a land, draw a card in the late game. That could be pretty good, and it would give us more use out of our black mana.
Okay. I actually like that. I even like that better than I do Slimefoot the Stowaway in the Ironroot Warlord spot. Like, so let's say that we take the 3 Shanas and 1 Amara out for a Cruel Celebrant, right? Because I'm pretty big on that switch, just because I have not had any luck with Shana in the past, and I know that Cruel Celebrant is just a really powerful card when you can make a bunch of dudes. I do like Amara, so I don't want to trim more than just the 1 Amara out. But that leaves us the spot, the 3 Ironroot Warlords. Um, I I kind of I kind of I kind of like the idea of one or two of those Ironroot Warlords being a Veraska. Justin Clay makes a good point here. We may not actually need 3 copies of Legion Landing. Like maybe just or sorry, we may only need 3 copies of Legion's Landing and not the fourth. So that could also give us a potential extra spot. So there's definitely some extra spots that if we did some trimming on this deck that I think would make for a valid argument, for putting in Veraska, or even trying Slimefoot the Stowaway or something like that. Although
Yeah,
I would definitely want to try Ironroot Warlord, and like if we could manage to go wide, it's definitely going to be a huge bomb. But is it just win more at that point? So
I think it's a case of it's win more, lose more. It's kind of both because it doesn't have trample, so it just kind of gets chump blocked to death by any deck that can like create blockers well enough is just gonna chump it to death, or remove it with really good removal like cast down, hero precinct one, Esper hero, Mardu hero, whichever version you run into. which you're more likely to run into Esper because I'm apparently the only person running Mardu Hero. But they can just block Warlord for days and kill it if they have to. I think cards like Iron Root Warlord and especially Shana Sisei's Legacy would have had a better time in the sun if Amonkhet were still in the format, because Amonkhet we had access to a card called Appeal to Authority, and the first half of that is the important part because it gave the creature plus X, where X is the amount of creatures you control, and trample. With creatures that are going to grow based on our board state, we really want them to be able to get trample somehow, and currently in standard there's only a select few ways to do that, especially in Abzan colors, which is kind of funny because green you would think would have better ways to do that.
Right, right. Looks like most of chat is 100% on. You need more raise alarm in the stack. We need 4 copies of raise alarm. Raise the alarm. Um, I I could agree with that. I like raise the alarm. I think the card's really good. The instant speed on it is extremely powerful. Create 2/1/1 soldier creature tokens. And if you're not going to go the Slimefoot the stowaway, I'd rather have Raise the Alarm than Saproling Migration, even though you do have the potential to get 4 out of a Saproling Migration. That's 6 mana to be able to get those 4. So 6 mana for 4 tokens kind of hurts. I don't know. Yeah. Yeah. Anyway,
And one,
go ahead.
sorry, one thing I will say for Iron Root Warlord is with Raise the Alarm in the format and Warlord being in the format, I can kind of see if maybe a Soldier's deck forms later down the line after rotation. Maybe then Iron Root Warlord could see a little bit more play. Otherwise, I don't think it's right for this kind of deck that we're building here.
Understood. Woodland Champion. So Dragonlord Woodland Champion should be considered. Woodland Champion is a 2 mana, 1 and a green elf scout that whenever 1 or more tokens enters the battlefield under your control, put that many 1/1 counters on Woodland Champion. So he would grow a lot. It's a lot like the Iron Root Warlord, only he's just going to stay big for every creature that he's ever seen enter the battlefield. Sorry, my mustache is tickling my nose here. Um, I don't know about Woodland Champion. It is a 2-drop, which is a thing in and of itself, being a little bit cheaper than Iron Root Warlord. I think I'm the general consensus here is that nobody seems to want to play Iron Root Warlord.
Right, and I think, I like Wooden Champion. It definitely looks like a really fun card in this kind of deck, but it suffers from the same problems and then some that Iron Root Warlord also suffers from. Iron Root Warlord is always going to have at least 5 toughness. Willing Champion, when it comes down, is going to be a 2/2 unless you can play another creature token the same turn. So, like, at latest, if you really want to protect it from, say, Cry of the Carnarium on your opponent's turn, you would have to wait until your third turn to play this into a Legion's Landing, which, it just doesn't seem like it's that good. Even compared to Iron Root Warlord, you just get that X5 body immediately. You don't have to worry about it getting taken out the next turn with a Cry of the Carnarium. And Warlord at least has that mana sink ability. As bad as it may be, it's a mana sink ability, which Woodland Champion can't say for itself.
Agreed. We also Skylar said it reminded him of Mana Gorger Hydra. I no that was a that was a broken card, very broken, and I'm glad it's gone. Mana Gorger Hydra. Whenever your opponent cast, wait a minute. Whenever anyone cast a spell, was it whenever anyone?
It was whenever anybody casts a spell. I love that card.
Oh my goodness, it was broken, especially when you get to run it with like hardened scales. So somebody casts a spell, you get to put 2 counters on it. Oh, the card was broken. But I can see where you're coming from by being able to get multiple counters, because every time you're casting a spell in this deck, you are getting a creature. Someone else mentioned that that the wording on that particular card, the Woodland Champion wouldn't get multiple counters. It would just get a counter each instance of creatures entering the battlefield. So, because it's whenever one or more tokens enters the battlefield under your control, you're going to create that many 1/1 counters. So if you had 10 tokens enter, you're getting one. You're No, wait a minute. You get that many
No,
1/1
yeah,
counters.
if you create 10 tokens, you still get 10 counters.
Yeah. Okay. My bad.
It's
So
just
then,
like Hungering Hydra, where however much damage is dealt to Hungering Hydra, it gets that much +1/+1 counters, assuming, of course, it survives.
okay. So then it's not like that at all. I mean, you would get that that many. Rocker says slowly puts his copies of Managorger. That's right. Put those away. We don't want to see that stuff. Um, all right. I do think the general consensus here is that we drop the Sisay and the Iron Root. Um, so I want to thank Dex for posting this deck for us. We're not going to play it right now at this moment. But this could definitely be one of the decks that we come back and look at later this week. I am going to be playing these. I'm going to play one of them tonight, but I'm going to be playing some other decks throughout the week that we've worked on, that we've built, that sort of thing. So we could end up potentially rolling back around to this or a variant of this. Would you say this is more of a go wide, like where we want to go with this? Would it be a go wide strategy, or do we want to kind of lean heavier into the aristocrat style strategy with it, minus the aspect of killing our own creatures, minus that part of it. So we're kind of a go wide aristocrats build. We go wide and then force them to kill our creatures, maybe something like that.
Well, because of the way I play my Mardu Hero deck is actually exactly that way. It's an aggro deck. It seems kind of aristocratic on its surface because I am playing Judith and Cruel Celebrants, but I'm also trying to attack in a lot. And I think this deck is just as go wide as that deck. It could even possibly be even more go wide. So uh, part of me wants to say that you could play those two strategies side by side and have the aristocratic theme as like a sub theme. Something that's it's not gonna quite get in the way of what your main goal is, which is to go wide, and even could help close out the game, kind of like how Sanctum Seeker does for the Orzhov Vampires deck. It kind of closes out the game in that way, because if you're going wide enough, you're getting in for damage no matter what, and then if they block your creatures, they're going to get drained a bunch whenever your creatures die. Thankfully, Cruel Celebrant counts tokens as well as non-tokens, so
Yes,
I
I
think they could
actually
work
had to
together.
look up Cruel Celebrant to make sure that it did count tokens, and it does. So yeah, um, taking damage on the way in, taking damage on the way out. You have blockers for days. If we did squeeze in some Veroskas, we could potentially sack our own dudes for Veroska, get a little value there. Yeah, I think I actually like the potential at where we could potentially go with this Abzan deck. Um, I'll probably play around with this a little bit and see if I can tweak some numbers, and we'll probably play a version of this later this week. So yeah, I'm definitely not going to play this deck tonight, because I want to play around with this version that we've kind of talked about tonight, and see what we can come up with, and we'll probably play like I'll probably just put this on the docket for tomorrow, and we'll play an Abzan Tokens build tomorrow, based somewhere around where we talked about on this tonight. So, what else we got, chat? I know chat's got more comments about this. This looks like a go wide deck that can aristocrat during a stall for further value. Yeah, that's kind of the idea there. especially like if they swing in with it's amazing how many times in those type of strategies where someone swings in with just one creature thinking that you're not going to block with 4 or 5 creatures. That you would just block with one, you would just chump block, and then you end up having like a cruel celebrant on the battlefield, and you're like, okay, well, I'm going to stick all of these guys in front of that big dude instead of just one. Now you have to kill them all. Um, and that forces your opponent to actually know a little bit about assigning combat damage, and a lot of times your opponent will not know. And this is tricky, crappy, dirty gameplay, but it's amazing how many people don't know that they can assign all combat damage to one creature.
I
They
had
don't
one
have to
game.
keep going. Yeah, so you might be able to get
I
tricky with it. Go ahead.
Sorry. I had one game that I literally took advantage of that fact, and it's actually how my opponent learned about how assigning combat damage can actually work. Uh, he had blocked one of my creatures with Ripjaw Raptor and something else. I don't remember exactly what it was, but instead of dealing any damage to the Ripjaw Raptor so that he wouldn't draw a card, I assigned it all to the other creature, and because he couldn't draw that card, it actually ended up winning me the game. But he was very confused about how I could do that. He didn't know that you can assign combat damage to only one creature, uh,
Even
and
beyond
so he
lethal.
actually,
Yeah.
I reassured him, like, yeah, that's how combat damage works. But if you want, we can call one of the staff members, and they can check up the rulings for you if you really want to question it. And we ended up doing that, and he's like, wow, I didn't know that. I
He
actually did
did.
not know
He
you can
did
assign
want
combat
to.
damage.
He did want to question it, huh?
Well, to be fair, like, I probably would have too if I
It,
had not known that
that
initially.
sounds
Like,
dirty. Wait a minute. What do you mean you're not hitting my Ripjaw Raptor? Hold on a minute here. No. Yeah, I get it. Chat seems to be pretty big on 4 mana Watley too. I get it. Everybody wants a Watley emblem. Watley emblems are great and they're pretty easy to get to. So, yeah.
I could see a 1-1 split between Golgari Queen and Watley.
Nah, I mean, if there's a Watley in the deck, sure, but I think this deck wants 2 Golgari Queens for sure. I really think it wants 2 Golgari Queens. It could make so much usage out of Golgari Queen. So,
Fair
um,
enough.
you blew a guy's mind once when you first strike Death Touch creatured him, killed 3 blockers before they touched you. Oh, Glissa. Ah,
Reminds me of Ankle Shanker, which
yeah,
not only has the best name for any magic card, I don't care what you say,
ankle shanker.
but also has one of my favorite abilities, just giving everything first strike and death touch.
You would drop Watley before Veroska any day of the week.
That's fair.
I. What do you mean by drop it? Like just drop it onto the battlefield? You'd rather drop the Watley? Because I'd rather have the Veroska. Um, I'm confused at what you're talking about there, Rocker. But yeah,
I think he
yeah,
means drop it from the deck because if I recall, Rocker kind of has a thing for Vrosk, if I'm remembering correctly. Ain't that right?
yeah. You're dead on it there. Um, Veroska's better. Probably Justin. Barry Drake says Managorger, Hydra, Taurine Mauler, and Ankle Shanker are a pretty sweet combo in the what
Saskia.
Saskia EDH deck at Madness. Okay, um, yeah, Ankle Shanker, good old Ankle Shanker. Um,
If ever I were a magic card, I think I would be Ankle Shanker.
fair enough, fair enough. Short little angry guy. Yep, got it. All right. Well, we're gonna move on to our next deck. This one is Sir Eccles. I think he's lurking around in chat. So if Sir Eccles, you want to come join us, if you're here in Discord, you're more than welcome to jump in and talk to us a little bit about your scheming Ashiok deck. All right. So Scheming Symmetry says choose two target players. Each of them searches their library for a card, then shuffles their library and puts that card on top of it. And then there's Ashiok. Now, I assume by the name that this is a scheming Ashiok deck that someone's trying to use Ashiok to cheat on scheming symmetry. But Ashiok's wording says spells and abilities your opponent control can't cause their controller to search their library. You could make them search their library. You could have a Field of Ruin and pop their land, and they're still going to search their library because you control the Field of Ruin. You control the scheming symmetry. So, I'm I'm not 100% if that's the route you were taking, but there is the other little combo that does work with Ashiok. And if that's the way you're wanting to go about it, by all means, I like it. So you would actually cast Scheming Symmetry. You would search up the two cards. They would put the card on top of their library, and then you would just minus Ashiok to mill them. So yeah, that part of the combo works really well. So I just wanted to point out the part that doesn't work. So just to make sure that people aren't going to be trying that, and then the other half of it works wonderfully. So yeah. We've got a lot of other cards that all just look like they're ways to support that plan. So you get to go look up whatever you want. So if you've got a bunch of one ofs, Barry Drake says, "Here's $10 donation. I have missed you guys. So happy I'm here tonight on a rare night off." Well, Barry, we're happy that you're here too, sir. I hope that you're enjoying your night off, hanging out with us. Um, so with scheming symmetry, we do have the option to just go like look up like random cards in our deck. So we do get to run some toolbox aspects, and you're going to see a bunch of one ups in this deck, and I assume that a lot of that is based off of those toolbox aspects. Um, Madness, what are you doing, man? Jumping in and out of channel. Yeesh. There's Sir Eccles. All right, Sir Eccles. I've Before I get into your toolbox
Hello.
build here, talk to us a little bit about your deck. So what made you want to play Scheming Symmetry? You have to be wanting to pull specific answers to just hose people, right? I mean, tell us a little bit about your deck here, sir.
Okay, so the idea was just to make scheming symmetry work and
You're coming in a little broken there, sir.
all right, hold on real quick. Let me here's what I'll do. I'm gonna pull the deck up on NTG Goldfish and not have the stream going in the background. Can you hear me?
I can, sir.
Okay. Sorry, I'm on my phone as well. So
You're good. You might want to go push to talk. I don't know. Sometimes I find on my phone that push to talk works better, but whatever. We're good. Seems to be working right now, so we'll roll with it.
all right. So the idea was to just make scheming symmetry work in standard, and I felt like the best way to make scheming symmetry work was either with Teferi casting it on my opponent's turn, or with Ashiok milling the top 4 of their library after they search.
Right, because that's one of the downsides to scheming symmetry is in most situations they're going to get their card before you get yours. So, okay. So I hadn't even gotten around to the Teferi's instant speed scheming symmetries yet, which actually ends up giving you a lot more information, right? So if you have your Teferi down and you're planning to do this at instant speed, you have a lot more information about what cards you need to go get. So Unlike if we're casting it and then just using Ashiok to mill their top four, um, you get to see their entire turn play out and then get to go pull up exactly what you need to hose whatever they had going on. I noticed that you're still on the Urza's Ruinous Blast. I give this card a lot of hate. Did you end up playing that at the tournament you went to?
Yeah, actually, I did. I went 4-3 with the Kethis deck. The two of my losses were um, to flooding, so there wasn't a lot I could do about that. Um, but yeah, it to be honest, Urza's Ruinous Blast was great, especially being able to recast it out of the graveyard multiple times.
Understood. So we're back to Urza's Ruinous Blast in this build. I notice you've got a bunch of little combos going on here, right? Like, so is this all part of your toolbox tech? Um, so before we jump into the toolbox tech, we've got the Narsets here as a three of Narset's going to allow us to to dig deep into the deck, either find skimming symmetry or pretty much any other card in the deck. And then the only other thing besides Urza's Ruinous Blast and the Teferis, which are part of the initial combo here, we've got 4 copies of Oath of Kaya, which are going to help protect our planeswalkers and stuff. So, kind of walk us through your toolbox package. Elder Spell, Kasmina, Karn, Settle the Wreckage, Wanderer, and Command the Dread Horde. Fall of Thrawn, Karn's Temporal Sundering. Like, you've got some interesting picks here, sir.
Yeah, so I guess I'll go through the cards individually. So the idea really is that when you're gonna draw, well, because you're just naturally gonna draw some of the cards, right?
Fair.
And when, for instance, like say we draw our Teferi, Hero of Dominaria, and we have an Ashiok on one, or a Narset on one, and a little Teferi on one, we can then scheming symmetry to search for our Elder Spell, and then blow up all of our Planeswalkers and Ultimate Teferi in one turn.
Okay, so
Um,
that's pretty powerful right there. I mean, yikes! Like, just
right,
here's 7 mana, here's a Teferi, and I'm gonna blow up all these other planeswalkers. Bam! Instant Teferi emblem. Yikes!
right. And then we've also got other things, like say we draw our Command the Dread Horde or the Wanderer, right? We can search for the other half of that combo and just pull everything from the graveyard to hand. So that was kind of the idea there. Um, and then Follow the Thran is just kind of cute with Ashiok, because if you find yourself in a position where you can follow the Thran and then activate Ashiok's ability to exile their graveyard, it turns out
Armageddon.
one-sided Armageddons are pretty good.
That it turned. Yeah, I hear that's pretty decent. That's pretty decent. What's Karn's Temporal Sundering all about? I mean, you just want to take an extra turn, or like you got
Well,
something comboing here? Like, I mean,
no, not necessarily. It can provide you a turn of setup, so you can bounce problematic permanent and then take your extra turn, and yeah, it's a payoff for playing so many planeswalkers, really. Not saying that that card is 100% sticky in the list, um, but it just seemed good enough.
understood. All right. Um, uh, the card I'm looking for, and I'm just wishing it was here, is Unmoored Ego. Like, if we're searching and we're like, where's Unmoored Ego? Seems
It's
like
on the side.
is it? All right, all right.
It is.
Okay. There is
There's a
there
one up
is
on the side.
there's 1 copy of Unmoored Ego in the side. Okay, so we do have that option to go. Let's go ahead and get those Field of the Deads before they get out
Oh
of
yeah,
hand here. Yeah.
and the good part is like, if you scheming symmetry, we'll say, you're in game 2 obviously at this point. If you've got Unmoored Ego in the deck, you use Scheming Symmetry on turn 1 for an Unmoored Ego. I don't know. It just seems like that's gonna pretty much shut down whatever they got going on. Either that, or they have to play counter spells, and then if you ever drop a Teferi, you're set for taking them off their game plan.
Oh yeah. I mean, if you can get an Unmoored Ego against the Escape Shift deck, there's not much they can do.
Yeah,
Um,
and having an effect with 5 copies in the deck is pretty nice.
right. Oh yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, you're only going to cast it once, but you've got
Right,
five
right.
chances to go
I
get it.
mean, how many times again? Right, how many times against Scape Shift do you need to cast it? More than once, I guess.
Uh, I mean, if you cast it twice, they have no way of winning.
Right, yeah, you take away their
You take
Hydroid Crisis.
Yeah, you get the land, then you get the Hydroid Crisis, and then they I don't think they actually have a win con. Period.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, maybe a second time. I see you're heavy on the Thief of Sanities in the sideboard, like all four. Like you're not
And
playing
the
around
Thief
with
of
it.
Sanities. Yeah, the Thief of Sanities, honestly, it's just a powerful card. If it doesn't get answered, you can just take over against mid-range matchups and things like that.
How about scheming symmetry, and they go. It's like, well, go search up whatever you want. I'm about to hit you with a Thief of Sanity. I mean,
Right.
yikes. You either get their better card, or maybe they were smart enough to go get a land, and you just dump it in the graveyard anyway. Um,
Exactly.
so yeah, Thief of Sanity swing on a turn. Yeah, exactly, Rocker. James still thinks that Kefnet would be good in here. Um, let's see. Brendan Hall was the one asking about the Unmoored Ego. We've got Skylar says that he feels like the deck wants a copy of Liliana. You can ultimate her so easily since you main deck Elder Spell. Might just be killing your own guys though. Um,
Right, there is one copy of Liliana in the main.
so there is. Oh, there's a Ugin down here too. Okay, so the deck actually has one Ugin and one Liliana Dreadhorde. I didn't see those. My bad. That's good job, MTG Goldfish. Way to hide 2 cards. Very important cards down in the mana base. Ugin's pretty big here. Like I think Ugin's wonderful. Um, so you're kind of like this Planeswalker deck that is just planning on sweeping the board. What happens when? I mean, I guess if they play early creatures, you just have to Oath of Kaya, wipe, like shoot them, shoot them, shoot them, and then get to your Urza's Ruinous Blast. Is that the plan?
Yeah, pretty much. Oath of Kaya has proven itself to me, at least, at being
It's a good
great
card.
at dealing with aggro, even up into some of the mid-range strategies. And then post sideboard, we've also got answers for aggro as well, in Tyrant Scorn and Legion's End.
Scheming Super Friends. Now that Skylar has seen the Liliana and the Ugin, he said now this deck gives him chills. All right, so it's definitely an interesting deck. I'm going to see if I can pull the cards for it, and we'll probably give it a test run here in just a few
And
minutes.
another thing I'd like to point out also is that Interplanar Beacon. I don't know how many of you guys have had a chance to play with Interplanar Beacon in a Super Friends list, but that card is above and beyond the aggro breaker.
The life gain's no joke, right? I
No, for sure.
I played with it in the Jeskai Super Friends deck when that deck was coming around, and oh my goodness, Interplanar Beacon, it's the real deal. I agree. It's 100% the real deal. Just making the multiple colors, it's great. So yeah, I agree. What else we got here? Anyone else in chat got something they're wanting to mention? I mean, personally, when I look at the deck, Karn's Temporal Sundering is the one card that I just don't like. Um, Everything else seems to have its place. Everything. I don't. I don't think we're trying to pass this deck off as a best in standard or anything. Just a toolbox. Let's try to make scheming symmetry work. I think if you're going to run scheming symmetry, you need to have some type of toolbox plan. So the deck kind of needs to be all over the place in order for it to be a good scheming symmetry deck, which means you're going to have those games where you just draw the wrong toolbox pieces, right? So
Right.
I mean that's just going to happen. But yeah, I think for what the deck is trying to do, I think it's fairly well constructed in that aspect. Again, I can't really back Karn's Temporal Sundering because I can't figure out what we're doing with it, or what scenario where we're going. I take one extra turn, you're dead, because that there's a million scenarios where that could potentially happen. So yeah.
Well,
Um,
something to think about as well is Kaya or Zav Usurper works really well with Ashiok also. So, if you do have Kaya out or you have Kaya in hand, you can Elder Spell your smaller walkers or one of them, and then that'll put Kaya up to 5, which you can immediately ultimate her to potentially shoot the opponent for massive damage off of
right,
Ashiok exiling.
because you've been adding 4 in the exile zone every turn that Ashiok's been out. So
Right.
if you've went through a full Ashiok, you've got lethal right there in the sideboard,
So
right? Or lethal
there
in
is
the
also
exile.
there is also the potential that you play a Kaya, and this is obviously in a late game situation where you can play your Kaya plus your Kaya, take your extra turn, and try to, or at least need that extra turn to be able to ultimate the Kaya that you've already had out, or things like that, right?
Fair. Like I said, I mean, taking an extra turn. There's a million times where taking an extra turn could be everything. If you are just going to have a random take an extra turn deck, or a turn card, I normally want that to be a planeswalker deck, because a lot of times you're not going to be able to play other cards, because I mean this is a 6 mana spell. You it's going to be rare that you have 6 mana and another 3 or 4 mana to play that turn as well. So I do like planeswalker decks for that type of card. So I can kind of get behind it. We've got all these planeswalkers down. We're gonna uptick, downtick them, whatever the case may be, and then take an extra turn, and do all the other things again. That being said, did you think about Oath of Teferi at all for the deck?
Hmm. No, actually, I didn't take Oath of Teferi into consideration. That might even be a better replacement for Temporal Sundering, as it can reset Ashioks or Narsets as well. So, if you were thinking about running the deck, I think replacing that with an Oath of Teferi would not necessarily be the worst idea.
Um, that's like the only suggestion I had, man. So glad you kind of like that one. Uh, Skylar says, "No way you read my mind, Eric." Um, right? Well, I read your mind because I was setting up for the oath line. I've been setting that up for like 2 minutes now. I put that thought into your mind, Skylar. Inception. Anyway, yeah, with all these planeswalkers, definitely Oath seems like that. Like if you're just wanting to get extra, planeswalker abilities, Oath might be the way to go. Um, hmm. Either way, I think I'm gonna see about pulling the cards. I think we'll also have to pull these cards on MDGO. I don't think I have the scheming symmetries on Arena, so we'll probably be playing this on MTGO. I am going to shut the stream down for a brief moment. We're going to try to be back up. It's 10:30 right now. I'm going to shut the stream down. It's going to come back up as coffee time. But I'll have the cards pulled for MTGO, and we're going to try this Scheming Symmetry deck. I will also pull Oath of Kaya. Maybe we'll do a couple games with, Oath of Teferi. Maybe we can do some games with both. So, but we'll play a few games and see what we think about this Scheming Symmetry deck. And yeah, I Scheming Symmetry the thought into your mind just to Ashiok it away. That's right, Skylar. That's right. The Proliferate land is in there, isn't it? Proliferate land, like Karn's Bastion. Oh,
No, I didn't have that in there.
we're like that seems like it would want to slip in,
Yeah, it
but
probably could. I think the issue is that having Interplanar Beacon in the deck is already setting us up on
colorless.
4 colorless lands, right? When we're trying to cast non-planeswalker things, which could be an issue. So you don't want to set yourself up to have 0 colored sources when you need to cast an Oath of Kaya or Scheming Symmetry, for instance, or things like that. I don't think it would be a bad inclusion, but I'm just not 100% sure what land I would take out to add it. There's
I'll pull
some
one
merit
anyway,
to
and we'll
maybe.
we'll play around with the idea of it. So, like Barry Drake just seen. We'll see you all soon. So, for all of you guys watching on the stream right now, Sir Eccles, stick around for just a moment. But for everyone else watching, thank you for joining in on Coffee Time. We're going to have episode 2 of Coffee Time where we actually play this deck. So, for everyone watching, thank you very much for coming out, and we'll see you soon for the gameplay.
All right, thanks for having me.